absolutely stunning country, an expanse of landscapes that will take your breath away, and a journey of discovery. G'day folks, we're in Outback, New South Wales, about to take in a very unique touring route that connects 1,100 kilometres and bordered by, count them, 3 Australian states. We're going to retrace a section of an expedition undertaken by European Explorer Charles Sturt back in the 1840s when he was looking to discover an inland sea in the very interior of the country. Broken Hill is where we get underway, making our way along the touring route towards Milparinka. From here, it's a drive further north to Tibooburra before landing in Cameron Corner in Sturt National Park. Then we loop back via Packsaddle to Broken Hill. To make life easier, there's a very informative app you can download for the road trip, and I highly recommend you do so before you hit the road. It's full of plenty of detailed information on what to do, where to go, and all the resources you need to get the very best out of the Sturt Steps and Corner Country road trip. And it all begins and ends here in Broken Hill. As Australia's oldest mining town, it was built on the back of its strong colonial history, which dates back to the 1840s when Charles Sturt first visited the area. It is one of Australia's most legendary outback destinations, a World Heritage listed city, a vibrant and cultural destination nicknamed Silver City because of its extensive mining operations, commencing in 1885 by the newly formed mining company BHP. A brief history lesson before our road trip gets underway. It was in 1844 when Charles Sturt led his inland expedition through the New South Wales Corner Country. And this route will be following the steps he took and take in the many stories behind the journey taken. Here we go, our way north as our Sturt Steps road trip gets underway. We're travelling this road trip over the course of 5 days, and you can take as long as you want, of course, and stay a while and immerse yourself in not only this beautiful country, but the history of Sturt's epic expedition. And what a day, look at that. Half an hour out of Broken Hill, we passed through one of the major creek systems where Sturt camped, and his expedition into the interior finally got underway. So we're in Yanco Glen, and what we see here are the remains of the old railway line that connected Broken Hill with Tarrawingi. Now, originally constructed in 1891, the railway was opened by the Tarrawingi Flux and Tramway Company, and it carried the limestone that was mined here along the 40-mile line to the smelters in Broken Hill. We travelled past what remains of the town Tarrawingi, with the road taking us north through the rugged landscape Sturt travelled on his quest to discover an inland sea. Well, Tilta in far west New South Wales. We're actually not far from the South Australian border, and a creek where Sturt made camp over Christmas in 1844. Years later, in 1880s, this area was a vast outback station called Corona. And this building, Tilta Store on Corona Outstation, was a supply depot for goods which were made available for purchase by the station workforce, shearers and neighbouring properties. Now it's a reserve under the National Parks and Wildlife Estate. The road trip is easy to navigate, and as we pass through the traditional lands of several Aboriginal groups, marked signage ensures safe navigation along the route. I cannot imagine how difficult it would have been for Sturt to cross this country with his wagons, horses and sheep. As we just about call it a day, we make a quick detour to see the ruins of the Veldt homestead, featured on the new $20 note, with the Flying Doctor aircraft flying over. A big day one, and it's time to rest up as we prepare for another solid day on the Sturt Steps touring route. We're at Pimpara Lake Station, a great spot to stay once you're in the area. And if you are after an authentic slice of outback station life, this is the place to do it. The stars last night, I felt like I could just grab one and pop it in my pocket. Amazing. Well, a few more sips and we're off to our next destination, which is Milparinka. Sturt passed north of Pimpara Lake, where he named Mount Arrowsmith after his London-based cartographer. And as we continue our journey through the wide open lands that make this amazing part of New South Wales so unique, we pass Pincally Station before arriving in Milparinka. Charles Sturt was, of course, the first European to visit the area, and he arrived here in Milparinka in the summer of 1845. The town is perched upon a sandstone rise above an ancient creek which Sturt named after his brother Evelyn. Now, this was the base for mining operations when large gold deposits were found nearby. Unfortunately, no gold was found in Milparinka itself, and by the late 20th century, the town had declined to become a ghost town. In saying that, the Milparinka community have done a magnificent job in restoring most of the heritage buildings in town, incorporating new interpretive space buildings to create an award-winning heritage precinct. So Clark, you spent the first part of your life travelling the planet, but it's a love of the bush and corner country which led you to plant roots a bit more permanently?
Yeah, the great irony is after all that travel, I only intended on being here for 2 years and then got out here and just my spirit soared. You know, this huge horizon, the blue sky. As an artist, it's absolute paradise for an artist, and also as a traveler, this great big empty space, it's wonderful.
And I love the stories you discover along the way. Like places like Milparinka were just boomed off the back of finding gold nearby and seemingly years later become a ghost town, but places like this with the restoration keeps those stories alive.
Yeah, they've done a great job of preserving all those stories. You have everything from the First Nations custodianship of the area, the early explorers, you have the current pastoralists on this property. And to me, it's a really authentic slice of what it means to actually live on this continent and to experience. And I reckon everybody should experience and come out here and visit.
I agree, mate. Matt, I can only imagine the stories that originated from this very building.
So the gold escorts used to leave from this building. They were taking the gold to a railhead nearby. And the story goes that a couple of police officers headed out on one of these escorting duties. And unfortunately, one of their guns went off by accident and shot their colleague in the arm. Unfortunately, there was no time to stay with him on the side of the path and treat him there, so they left him and continued on with their escorting duties. He was taken to a local nearby hospital and treated, where he lost his arm. So the escorts got back to find their colleague with an amputated arm.
A classic example of the fine design work by colonial architect James Barnett, the courthouse was constructed in 1896, closing in the 1920s, and by the 1980s was in disrepair. Now, this beautifully restored sandstone building forms the hub of the Milparinka Heritage Precinct. It is also important to note that Milparinka is where an inspired art trail, in part designed by West Darling Arts, displays some amazing sculptures and artwork relevant to Charles Sturt and the people who have lived and passed through this area and the wider region that sits within corner country.
Well, this is the only pub in town and still operating today. The Albert Hotel, built in 1882, and during the height of the gold rush was one of 4 hotels in Milparinka, serving a 300 strong population. How do you explain this pub to people when they ask, like, tell me about this pub you own seemingly in the middle of nowhere, Rebecca?
What do you say? It's a pub in the middle of nowhere. There's no shops, there's no trains, there's no buses, it's just a pub.
But out of 4 hotels that were in town, the fact that this one remains, and it's been such an important part of the town then
Yep.
and now. What do you say about that?
Oh, I think that's pretty amazing. Yeah, yep. It's a beautiful hub for our community because we've got quite a big community. Lots of stations surrounding us, and they'll come in and get together, and it's a good outlet for them. Just chat about life and what's going on, and yeah, so it's very important. I love work, meeting people, just the scenery, the countryside. I just love it. It's just got me.
A great day spent in Milparinka, and we're on our way to Tibooburra, the headquarters of the surrounding Sturt National Park, aptly named, of course. And if you close your eyes and picture a real outback town, then Tibooburra is likely it. The national park acts as protection to a huge arid landscape, from the dunes of the Strzelecki Desert to the 450 million-year-old granites that surround the town. And if you're up for some trekking, a hike to Mount Wood summit rewards you with stunning views of the surrounding landscape.
Tibooburra is known as the capital of corner country. It was once called the Granites, and it's easy to see why. As you come to town, you see there's enormous granite boulders just dotting the landscape. Now, gold was discovered here in the early 1880s, and if you take a good look around, you know what you're doing and where you're going, you'll still find some today.
Each of Tibooburra's entry points display silhouettes that represent the town's history, the tales of Sturt's visit to the region and its mining and pastoral industry. And in Pioneer Park, a replica of Sturt's boat is located on top of the tall poles, upturned to represent the futility of the search for an inland sea.
On the main street, a new museum provides insight into the town's history, local Aboriginal people and the camelliering heritage of the area. It's pretty hard to miss with my two new mates here.
And this impressive museum was once the town's courthouse, also designed by James Barnett in 1887, and today forms part of the headquarters for the National Parks and Wildlife Service. Can you just imagine what life was really like for the people who worked and lived on sheep stations in the early 1900s? It would have been a tough gig for sure, to say the very least. There's still a couple of hotels remaining in town, as well as some original buildings from Tibooburra's past. The Family Hotel is as true an authentic pub you could see, and was built in 1882. The aptly named two-storey hotel, built the same year, and has been used by locals and travellers alike for decades. And what was once a hostel for children living on station properties, the War Memorial Hotel has been refurbished into modern accommodation by the Tibooburra Village Committee, with income being fed back into the community for other projects.
Dan, tell me the early beginnings of the hostel, because it's quite an amazing story how it started.
So the hostel started in the early 1960s. There was a need for kids on all the outlying properties to go to school. Because we live in the unincorporated area, there's no governing bodies to administer schooling.
And mate, this is isolated, 700, 800k away. Yeah. If they hadn't come here, they'd be homeschooled? Like what would...
Well, they'd have to be homeschooled by their parents, and 30, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, there was some limited resources to be able to do that. So it would have been a pretty meagre education.
Time to make a move as we head towards the Fort Grey area, where Sturt set up his second major camp in the area alongside Lake Pinnaroo. From there, Sturt mounted his final pushes into the interior, reaching as far north as the desert around Birdsville. Beyond this famous location, we land at an iconic destination, one with a great story to tell.
Well, Queensland is that way. New South Wales is that way. And I'm standing in South Australia right now. This is Cameron Corner, not only the northernmost point of our road trip, but also the intersection of those 3 states I just mentioned. It's a place I've always wanted to visit, so super happy to be here right now. But I'd love to be here on New Year's Eve. You can experience 3 different New Year's Eve in one single night and quite literally party around the country. Every year, thousands of tourists pass through Cameron Corner. It's a favourite spot for people travelling the region and an ideal stop on their way to anywhere and everywhere. You would have heard of the historic Dingo Fence. Well, this is it. Originally built in the 1880s, running along the state borders and now forming the western and northern boundaries of Sturt National Park. It was built to keep invasive rabbits out of Queensland and New South Wales, and later converted to prevent wild dogs from entering the region. This is part of what is the world's longest fence at 5,614 kilometres long. After reaching the top of our loop trail, we're making our way back south to our overnight stopover before heading back in the direction of Broken Hill. But before we make it to Milparinka, a little turn that takes us to an important area of Sturt's expedition. Sturt and his team camped in this area, a waterhole in a creek named Preservation. Now, the waterhole was critically important to the survival of the group, which consisted of over 200 sheep, horses and cattle. Now, they stayed here for 6 months, but with water running out, it put the expedition in serious doubt. This was a challenging time for the expedition, and tragically, Sturt's second in charge, James Poole, became ill and subsequently died. His burial site located near the waterhole. Well, the climbing shoes are on as we aim for the summit of nearby Mount Poole. Well, it's a steady 30-minute walk to the top over fairly rocky ground, but I guarantee you it is worth it, not only for this extraordinary view, but for this, the cairn that Sturt and his men built. This spot is a monument to their expedition, a lasting memory of the many, many obstacles they faced during their travels throughout the region. We pass back through Milparinka, and after a quick refreshment break in Packsaddle, we make a stop at an art display which doubles as a place of remembrance. Now, this is what's called a yarning circle. It's made of these carved granite slabs in which the names of Sturt's men, the various locations of the shanty hotels and horse changing stations along the course of his route have been etched into the stone. You know, everywhere you go, and certainly everywhere we've been on this entire road trip, Sturt's presence is felt, and the way in which the explorer's incredible journey and stories have been not only recorded but displayed for everyone to experience is brilliantly done. We venture south to Broken Hill, and as the landscape changes, nestled at the edge of the hills of Bajurkano is another shelter constructed to tell the story of Sturt and local pioneers. So alongside the shelter is a silhouette of a woman named Matilda Wallace. As you can see, she's holding a lamb as she looks out towards the plains. Now, this tells the story of how she often had to shepherd the family sheep while her husband was often away, sometimes more than 100 kilometres in search for water. Now, Matilda was the first European woman to live in the area. Her story really is a remarkable one. She was often helped out by the local Aboriginal people while she waited for her husband to return. Back to our base and a stopover in Broken Hill before we make our way home. And our digs for our last night is the historic Palace Hotel. Built for £12,000 in 1889, this grand hotel is a picture of history and colour, beautifully preserved, with the characters from the iconic Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, staying here in the mid-1990s during production of the film. It even has its own Priscilla suite. Selena, what a room. I immediately feel underdressed. I feel I need some sparkles, some glitter.
Absolutely.
Some heavy makeup.
Yes.
Possibly.
Yes, that's always the go here.
It just screams fun to me, and everywhere I look, I see something new. How do you describe the Priscilla suite when people ring up? What do you say to them?
Firstly, we explained that it was part of the movie, filmed here in '93. So you'll see quite a major scene where the 3 drag queens spend a bit of time in the room.
The sort of people, I can only imagine they come from around the planet because people are fanatical about that movie, and rightly so.
They do, they do come from around the world. We've had all walks of life, that this is on their bucket list, and they prepare, a year in advance. They come with bags of costumes, and they sit in the room, they sit on the balcony, and just take it all in and relive the movie.
Well, done and dusted. 1,100 kilometres in 5 days. Before you come out this way, make sure you check out the Visit Corner Country website. It's got a detailed map which you can download, which gives you a couple of options on which way to go. Oh, another tip, make sure you use the app. We found it extremely helpful throughout our journey, and what a road trip it was. Incredible country, amazing people that we met, and of course, a truckload of history and stories to discover when you come out this way yourself. I hope you've enjoyed the show. Thanks so much for watching. Make sure you keep up with us on our socials so you can join along for our next road trip. Until then, see you later.